he's not on. Likutei Torah, Balak, Shah. Page Ayin Dalet, middle of the first column. Okay, now the Rebbe explaining that there's three levels of Teshuva. There's level Surmera, there's a level of Asay, and now he comes to the third level, that even though you're ultimately good with Surmera Asay, but there's another level of returning to realize that you go back to the neshama, to the source of the neshama, where the neshama comes from, which is the level of ayin, which is ultimate level of bittul. So in other words, the third level of tshuva is the ultimate level of bittul. That's what he says. He says, midway through the first column. This is the great level of tshuva. He mamish wants to become with Hashem. He's not an entity, no existence at all. What the pasuk says, Shuva Elai, Hashem says, return to me. That means Elai mamish. And he says that's the level of Yechidah Shebenefesh. And it says in Eitz Chaim that the level of Yechidah Shebenefesh, Mislaba Shanit Tzaluki Mamish, is Mamish an actual spark of Hashem. Yechidah, Chassidus explains, is what's Makabel from Yochid. Yochid is not Echad. Yochid means the essence of Hashem, the way nothing else exists but Hashem. And Yechidah is the one that receives the level of the neshama that receives from that level, which is the level of a Kesed. That's called Yechidah, because we have two levels in Kesed. Kesed is a crown. Okay? So Kesed is a crown that connects the world of Atzilus, which is already a world, to a world to above worlds. Okay? So therefore, in order to be the mamutza, the intermediary between higher than Atzilus and Atzilus, you need to have two levels, one of the higher level and one of the lower level. And that's why when you have a crown, with the level concept of Kesed is a crown, Seichel, Chochmah Bin and Das starts in the head. And then you have Midas, and then you have, the different parts of the body. Kesed is on top of the head. But the crown has two parts. There's a level of the crown that goes onto the head. So that's connected. It's above the head, but it's connected to the head. And then you have the higher part of the crown, where the jewel is, so to speak. That is the higher level, has nothing to do with the head. So in Kesed it says there's two levels. There's Arich Ampin and Atik Yemin. Arich Ampin literally means a long face. In Aramaic, Arich Ampin means a long face, because the 6 feeders are called Ze'er Anpin. Ze'er Anpin means a little face. So Arich is the longer face, but it's still a face. In other words, it's smaller and bigger. So Arich Ampin is the source of world. That's the lower level of Kesed. Then you have Atik Yemin. Atik means removed. Yemin means from the Sfiris, from the days, meaning from the Sfiris. So the level of Atik is a level of what's called Pchinas Tachteina Shebamaitzel. It's the lowest level of Hashem, and then it comes Arich Ampin. Those are the two levels of Kesed, and then you have the worlds. So that's what he's saying here, the level of Kesed. Sheniku Yechidah, which is Tachteina Shebamaitzel. Then came Tshuva, so this third level of Tshuva, to become mamish, one with the source, which is Kesed Arich Ampin v'Atik Yemin, the two levels of Arich and Atik, v'zel Tshuva Gimel, of the Neshama Yosef v'Yochel b'Shoshin, the level of Chaye Yechidah. Okay, so this is the three levels. The Surmera, stop, bringing evil into the world. There's a level of Asay Tev, bringing Seviv into Mamala. And then you have the third level of Tshuva. V'nei Tshuva zu el bechinas ha-Torah. He says that's the level of Torah. Because primarily the second level of Tshuva, he said, was a level of Tefillah, which is binding connection. This is the level of Torah. Why is it the level of Torah? Shatayr Nikra Mashal HaKadmeni. Torah is called Mashal HaKadmeni, the Mashal of Kadmeni, meaning what existed before worlds. Shemashal Levush, which Torah is called Mashal, a Mashal of Kadmeni, whose Hashem is Kadmei Shal Olam, who's there before the world. Masha'ein Begader Almin Klau, which is not at all in the realm of worlds. Shu'atzmus Eretz of Mamish, which is the essence of Hashem. Like it says in the Gersa Kodesh, in David's Miras Karisali, okay, and also look at Yetam, Chena Mirazal, Kol Eisik B'Torah, therefore the Gemara says, whoever occupies himself in Torah, makes him shalom, makes peace, in the heavenly abode and in the earthly abode. Because Torah is connected to the essence of Hashem. And here he's referring to not Torah, which is Chochmas Shel Kadosh Baruch Hu. Torah, which is it's mamish one with Hashem, the toy that Hashem plays with, meaning the actual level of Tainug. That level, when a person learns Torah, he makes peace between, so to speak, heaven and earth, between the essence of Hashem and world, which means it comes from a level higher than both. So he's mamish one with Hashem. What does it mean? It makes peace between the heavenly abode and the earthly abode. What's Pamayu Shemaila? Bor Makam Achad. That what it means is he connects Seviv and Mamala. If you remember, we learned Sur Meirah is Mamala, Asaytev is Seviv, and now he gets the higher level, Bakish Sholem, because the Pasuk says Sur Meirah Asaytev Bakish Sholem. Bakish Sholem means making peace. That's the level of Torah, which is the third level of Tshuva, that makes peace between Seviv and Mamala. Why is it? He said, because it's higher than Seviv and Mamala together. And that's the third level of Tshuva. What it says, may go tamari with the Meiser, the Gam Shaydei Mitzvahs, Hamshach and Bechinas Makif. And even when you do mitzvahs, granted mitzvahs are very great, but mitzvahs are levushim, garments. It's only makif level. But but Torah brings it down into a pnimis, like David HaMelech says in Tillim, your Torah is in my stomach. Now, what do you mean Torah is in my stomach? In the yeshivish world, when a guy comes up with a retarded, crazy idea, they call him, it's a beich svara, a beich is stomach, a beich svara. It's coming from the stomach. It's not from the brains, it's coming from the stomach. But the Pasuk says, your Torah is in my guts, in my innards, because Torah is a pneumius. That's why Torah is called food. Mitzvahs are called levushim, and Torah is called lechem. What happens when you learn Torah? It's like the level of Kaddish Hashem, is in him, in the stomach. This is a Maimar Chazal Dal Torah brings in the first page of Tanya. Over there it says Bittul Talmud. But anyway, but the Medrash says that Hashem will forgive the Averis of idolatry, adultery, and murder, but He won't forgive people that don't learn Torah. Why? Yeah, but Al Rebbe in the first page of Tanya brings out Vita al Bittul Talmud Torah. Because that's what it says, Var Hashem Baza. When you don't learn Torah, you shame the word of Hashem. That's exactly what he says in the first page. Just like a person has external limbs that you really can live without. And then you have the essential limbs. On the other hand, all the external limbs, like God forbid, if you amputate a hand, you could still live. You amputate a foot, God forbid, you can live. but you can't amputate a brain or a heart or the Ivonim Pnimiyim. Rakshia Balmum, Ava Ivonim Apnimiyim, Afila the neck of Lavad, even a little hole in the lung or the brain, you become treifa, like even my animals, right? The little hole there, you can't live. You're not able to live. So that because you have Ivonim Pnimiyim. So mitzvahs are called Ivonim Chitzoniyim. Torah is called Ivonim Pnimiyim. And like it says next column, mitzvahs are called the 248 limbs of Hashem. Avot Torah, which is Chachmasei Keli Veiva Pnimi Mamish. She'er Ein Tov Einam Lobish Ela B'Chachma Dafka, because Elokus can only reveal itself in Chachma. Because Chachma, the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, is a level of Bittul. She'u Levadehu Ve'ein Zolosi V'zu HaMadregas HaChachma, which is Keach Ma Bittul. V'Kein Levit. What? He said first here he's saying that it's in the brain. I mean, but what's the?
But he's saying it's also in the whole pneumius of a person.
Yeah, Terascha, the same belief Beinu Bina Lohavin Lahaskil. That's also the level of Bina, which is the heart. But he's saying primarily Torah is the level of Chachma. V'zeh Masha Kosev B'Matan Torah. Anechi Havaya Lekecha. What do you mean Anechi Havaya Lekecha? So he says Havaya Lekecha is Seviv and Mamala. Right? Havaya is Yud Kevavke is Seviv. Elokim is Mamala. Aval Anechi. Misha Anechi Atma Serein Tzov Shalamayla Gami Seviv Kol Almin. And therefore, Mizgal Evenim Shechlias Havaya Lekecha Mamish. That's what like we learned. Through the level of Anechi, Havaya could become a Lekecha. Because L'chaira, Seviv is encompassing, infinite. Elokim is Mamala, which is limited. So yet we say, Havaya Lekecha. So the same thing we learned. When you say a bracha, Baruch Atah, by bringing down the level of Atah, then Havaya Lekecha, Hashem Elokeinu. You can make Havaya Elokeinu, and not only through that, you can make it Melech HaOlam, because it brings it down into the world. But Anechi means through the Gilu of Anechi, then you have a Gilu higher than Seven Mala, V'amizgal Evenim Shech Havaya Lekecha Mamish, Shebchinas Havaya Zeh. This level of Yud Kevavke, that comes in the level of Anechi Mamish. Like it says, Mimamakim Korosicha Havaya. We say Shamaus Mimamakim, right? Mimamakim means from out of the depths. Korosicha Hashem, simply it means out of the depths of my heart, meaning when I'm broken, that's when I'm calling Hashem. He says, no. I mean, yeah, deeper, that how do I call? Again, call means he revealed itself to you. How do you reveal the level of Havaya? L'chaira, Havaya is infinite, Seviv Kolam. And how do I internalize Havaya? That's to a level Mima'amakim. Hainu Me'atzmas Erein Tov Mamish, which is higher than Seviv, higher than Mamala. Nimshach Liyas Havaya Lekecha Mamish. How is that? Though they Eisek HaTorah, which is also called the level of Eimek, depth. Like it says, Ma'ed Amku Machshvei Secha. Machshava refers to Torah, Hashem's Chachma, and we say Ma'ed Amku Machshvei Secha. Ashe, like it says in Medrash, Ashe Adam Sheyesh B'divrei Torah. Fortunate is the person that has Torah v'shmurim b'yodei, and guarded, meaning they keep it, all of HaKosev Eimem, Mayim Amukim, Eitze B'levish. The Shlomo Amach says in Mishlei, he says that Mayim Amukim, the depth, in-depth water, which refers to Torah, is the Eitze, B'Eimem Tzemim Amakim Krasicha. And he says, Tfilah La'oni Ad Kan L'Sheini. What does that mean? Hainu Aidei Teshuva Tchila. That should be Eisek HaTorah Lishma, learning Torah just for Torah. Like it says, Mokem Achirani Es Merecha. I show me your vision. Hashmieni Es Kelech, let me hear your voice. Be'inyan Al Shalei Bercha B'Torah Tchila. That's the same concept that they didn't do make Berchas HaTorah. Like we learned, the Gemara says in the Torah, why is the land destroyed? Neim Achor V'Hor Shalei Bercha B'Torah Tchila. So we learned, what does it mean Shalei Bercha B'Torah Tchila? The problem is, it doesn't say they didn't learn. They learned. They didn't do Birchas HaTorah. What a big deal, Birchas HaTorah. They didn't say Birchas HaTorah. So it says, Rabbi Yoin explains, that Shleberach HaTorah means that when they learned Torah, they learned it as a secular wisdom. They forgot to realize it's nice in HaTorah, it's Hashem's Torah. In other words, like this. Normally, by definition, Seichel causes ego. I know, I'm very smart, I know a lot. That's ego. When you learn Torah, and without the realization it's Hashem's Torah means I understand nothing. Forget. In reality, normally by nature, the more Torah somebody learns, the more gaiva they get, the more yeshus they get. When you learn Torah with bittul, then on the contrary, the more you learn, you realize you don't know anything. In other words, the more you learn, the more you realize you know nothing. That level of bittul is the ultimate level of Torah. Because he said before, Hayir Mamshech Torah Neched the Teshuva Gimel, the third level of Teshuva is ultimate bittul. That's the level of Neisin HaTorah. Va'a'inyal tfilasi she'ismuchel mitasi. K'dei she'yeh eisek HaTorah. It should be eisek HaTorah acherusa deliba b'tfilah. In other words, first you have to daven. Why is the halacha? You're not allowed to learn before davening. And the Gemara says, but the order of a Jew is, you would go to Beis HaKnesses to Beis HaMedrash, says the Gemara says in Brachas. First you daven, then you learn, and then you go deal with the world. So why do you have to daven? Why do you have to daven before learning? Because the whole concept of tefillah is the realization that a person is nothing. That's what he says, right? Bittul. The whole level of bittul. All the way, like korbanis and the pouts of davening, whatever. So if you learn before davening, before you have this level of bittul, so davening is like similar to the concept of Birchas HaTorah, that you have the bittul. So if you first you have to daven, first you have to do bittul, and then you can go learn Torah. Then you can go into the world doesn't affect you. Why? Because the Torah learning is a real Torah learning. This is part of davening. This is a preparation for davening. Gemara is not a preparation for davening. But the Chassidus is the level of, there's a Ramon Shulchan Aruch that says, before you daven, there's a chiyuv, halachic chiyuv, to meditate into godless sakel v'shiflus ha'adam. To meditate into the greatness of Hashem and the lowness of man, which is mamish the level of Chassidus. That's what you have to meditate in. V'zel baruch atah havai Elokeinu, perish ataynu mohu sivatz mosi yizbarech, shalamayla mechina shem havai, which is the essence of Hashem. Like we say atah, and then havai Elokeinu, Yom Shalias Havai Elokeinu Mamish. So he says in the kids, what? So he says in the Kitzur, Teshuva Gimel Latz Mitzvah Yisrael, which is higher than Sefer Mala, Ad Yaver Amcha Havai, even higher than Yudkei Vovkei, which is the level of Teshuva Elai Mamish, and that's who Eisa Katera Evadim Pnimi, which is the level of Aneichel Havai Lekech.
Can you just skip to the third level?
No. No, first the third level is super lofty. I mean, we're not even by the first level. Forget the first level, the second level. We're far away from the first level. But the third level is ultimate level of bittul after you bring Seviv into Mamal and you bring higher than Seviv in there. I mean, yeah, you could skip. There were times in the later years the Rebbe said that you can go straight to Teshuva Yilah without Teshuva Tatom.
Do we know anybody who did that?
Did what? These three levels?
Yeah.
Yeah, tzaddikim they're called.
No, you learned Torah.
I know one thing for sure. I am not this level. Not one, not two, not three. I know who the Rebbe is on the third level. I mean, but,
He's saying to just do Torah learning, you get that third level.
Yeah, but he says learning Torah with bittul,
You didn't really learn.
not learning Torah. Learning Torah, Shlei Berach about Torah Chil, Eretz Yisrael was destroyed. What?
Then we learn the fact that Alter Rebbe is saying this is achievable.
Yeah, it's achievable.
So
Why do I say I didn't do it? Because I don't do it.
I understand, but it's
Achievable, yeah, definitely.
Easily achievable.
Easily, no. Nothing that's valuable. One second.
The person put his head and release all the negativity in a second.
Yeah, that's why Rabbi cried and says we work our whole life for it, and this guy did it in a second. Yeah, that's exactly why Rabbi cried. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi cried, not me and you cried. Yeah, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi cried. Said, look, it happened. Okay, they're achievable. But anything which is worthwhile does not come easy. If it comes easy, it's worthless. Easy come, easy go. It's worthless. Something that a person worked for, Adam Reise B'kaf Shalei Mitusha Kav Mishchaver, the Gemara says. A person would rather have one measurement, what he worked for, over 9 times the amount that he didn't work for. Because when you work, then you appreciate what you did. If you get something easily, you'll give it away easily. Yeah, it's achievable. Of course it's achievable. So we have to do it. I'm not saying I can't do it. Every person could do it, obviously. If not, it wouldn't be here. The Alter Rebbe is not saying my morning for himself. He's saying my morning for us. Vinei kol ha-tshuvas hanal is called Bechor. All these 3 tshuvas are called the word Bechor, Beis Chafresh. Ki Gimel is Bechor, because the 3 levels of Bechor are Yechidus, Asirius, and Meis. Okay? There's single, doubles, and 100. What's the name for that in math? There's 2 is single, 10s are 10s. There's Yechidus, Asirius, and Meis. So the word Bechor, Beis is single, Chof is the 10s, 20, no, and then Reish is 200. So it's the level of double, single, 10s, and hundreds. Habeis Yechidus, Chof is Asiris, and Reish is Meis. Why? Because he says like this in a Gimel Tshuvas Hanal. These 3 levels of Tshuvas are 3 levels of Neshamas, of Asiya, Yetzira, and Bria. These 3 levels of Tshuva, the lowest one, Sur Meirah, is the level of Neshamas from Asiya, and Yetzira, and Bria. Ve'im B'chlal Gimel B'chinas, which are generally speaking, the 3 levels of Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama, Shetzarech Levaram U'Letzaknam, that they need to be refined and fixed and elevated through the level of the Gimel Tshuvas Hanal. Okay? Which means like this. There's 3 levels of the neshama that are dealing directly with the body. Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. Nefesh is action, Ruach is the midas, and Neshama is the seichel. Okay? Those 3 levels of the neshama, those are in the body. That's why we like learn many times. On a regular weekday, we have 3 tefillas. Shachris Mincha Ma'ariv, or Ma'ariv Shachris Mincha, whichever way you look at it. Those are the 3 levels that corresponds with the 3 levels that are in the body. Shabbos, Yom Tov, Rosh Chodesh, we have 4 Shemon Esreis. Because on those days they're holier days, so the level of Chaya is revealed in the Neshama. Yom Kippur, Yom Shen is Chayiv Bei Chamish Tfilas, and Yom Kippur we have 5 Tfilas, because on Yom Kippur the level of Yechida is revealed. So Chai Yechida is not the level of the Neshama that's dealing directly with the body. So therefore they're perfect. They don't have to be refined. What has to be refined is the action, the midas, the seichel of the person. That's Nefesh, Ruach, and Neshama. That's the 3 worlds, Asiya, Yetzirah, and Bria. And this is, he says, it's the 3 levels of tshuva. He says, Peter, later, Tshuva al Shasur Merah is the level of Nefesh and Asiya, is because you're closer to sin, because As-Elam Asiya is close to the world of Klipas and Chatzirnim, which is a Nefesh Yetzirah. And therefore, Yochel Yisavei Gemur, in that level of Nefesh, you can have Mamish, Emes, sin, whatever.
Oh.